Hey everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and our weekly look back at the hot comics from 6 months ago. This week we're looking back at the hot comics from July 19th, 2024, and I'm recording this on January 15th, 2025. As always, those dates are so you know when this information is most relevant because the market is always moving and changing, as we will see when we get into this list. Also, as always, we're looking back at the CBSI Hot Top 10 and the Comic Tom Key Collector Hottest Trending Comics of the Week. We use those two lists to see what was hot, what was moving in the market, what were people chasing, and then see what's going on with those books now so we can learn more about what books we should chase, what books we should be patient on, and see if we can all make a little better decisions when we purchase hot books of the moment. So, this week we got, what do we got? We got 17 books to talk about. So let's dig into the list and see what we can learn. But first, I almost forgot. I'm going to give a shout out. I now have memberships. So if you want to join the channel and help support me, continue to make these videos, we are now at exactly 6 years with this video. We will be 6 years of doing this. I would really appreciate it. So here's my membership tiers. And with that, let's dig into this list and see what we can learn this week. First up, we got Barbaric, number 1. This hit the list because we got casting news. The big news, we got casting for the main character, but we also got casting news that Patrick Stewart is going to be the Axe. Apparently, the Axe in this particular comic is sentient, so that was what was going on here, why this book was hitting the list. Raw copies were going for $15 to $25 back then. Now it's a $5 to $35 book, but most of the sales are still in that $15 to $25 range. 9.8 though only went for $45, but that's only one sale, so pretty cheap for 9.8 on this book, really. But there's not many of them out there either. So we're gonna call this steady and worth it. Book's basically sitting right in the same range with a few outliers higher and lower than what it was before, but still some interest in this particular project. Interesting to see Patrick Stewart is the voice of a bloodthirsty axe. That should be fun. Next, we got 24, the one shot. So we actually got a 24 comic book based on a TV show. And apparently this is hitting the list because there was talk there's going to be a movie, which the whole concept of that show was basically it was real time. Like every hour of the show was an hour of a day. So I'm not sure how you turn that into a movie, but that was what the rumor was back then. Back then, raw copies were going for $5 on average. Now, only one recent sale in the last couple of months. It was a $10 sale. So we'll call this steady and I'll be back rather than worth it or up because really just one book is sold. Yeah, it went for 10, but there's just not any real increase in like any real number of sales to kind of get any kind of market here. So yeah, somebody did buy it for 10, but I wouldn't really call that up. Next, we're going to start moving into covers. Our first cover this week is Biker Mice from Mars, number 1 from the 2024 relaunch of this series. And this is the Francis Portela 1 in 50 Akira homage. So this book was hitting the list. This 1 in 50 was going for $80 to $100 back then, which is, not great for a 1 in 50, a little less than double ratio. So that usually doesn't mean good signs. But in this case, it's been pretty steady. It's $60 to $100 now. But it's mostly sitting still around that $80 mark from before. So we'll call it steady. I'll be back. You can definitely do a little better, but there are enough sales in the range that it was before that I would still consider it steady. Next, we have Witchblade number 1 from the 2024 relaunch. And this is the J. Scott Campbell 1 in 50. This one was going for $90 to $100, so basically right around double ratio price. And this one did more typical of what you see with a book going for about double ratio. It's now a $35 to $85 book, so borderline getting into trap, but definitely an I'll be back on that. 9.8, only recent 9.8 sales were all signature series. They're all going for $125 to $175, so those are all signed copies. Or the only 9.8s that have sold recently. But yeah, overall, we'll call this down and I'll be back. Borderline getting in that trap, but there was enough sales closer to the 85 than the 35 that we went on and just said, I'll be back. Next up, we have Grommets number 2. This book was on the list a couple weeks ago. This is the Alex Riegel 1 in 10. Back then, it was going, 2 weeks ago when we talked about it, it had been going for like 25 to 35 right out the gate with people enjoying the Grommet series. So between right around triple ratio. By this point, it was 25 to 40, still just lots of sales, not necessarily up from what it had been. Currently, kind of a weird book. The most recent sale goes all the way back to November, but those sales were like 50 and 62 for raw copies, but 37 and 40 for 9.8s. So I called this like, this one was one that was super hard to like call. I called it steady and worth it back then because the sales were kind of in that range, even though 9.8s, but not a lot of sales here. Listings are at 40, so on the upper end of what it was going for. So, yeah, I mean, steady, I'll be back, maybe, because nobody's really listing it for less, but it's also not selling. So, next, we had one just true buzz book, and that was Ain't No Grave, #1. It hit the list with the release of the third print, caused some people to go back and start buying the first print. It's going for $8 to $17 for a first print, so back then, so basically double, triple cover price. On this particular book, people were very interested in this series. I know a few people talked about this on their best of 2024 list for series. Now it's a $5 to $10 book, so a down and I'll be back. Definitely a book that was no reason to necessarily chase, but maybe a good read if you're looking for something fun to read. So next, we had one book that was sort of related to toys, maybe X-Men 97, still a little bit. This was Uncanny X-Men #158, the second appearance of Rogue. It's tied for her second appearance. It's her first cover, but it's also actually tied for that with ROM #31. But basically, this was hitting the list because we got the Marvel Legends release that we're going to get a Rogue and her this basically original uniform, original design Rogue action figure. So raw copies were going for $25 back then, 9.8, $250, which is about kind of where this book sits. It wasn't really up very much. Now a raw copy will cost you $5 to $30. 9.6, no recent 9.8 sales to compare it to, was $75. We'll call it down and I'll be back, but maybe it's steady and I'll be back. But yeah, maybe a slight step back on this particular one. But yeah, great Rogue book. And yeah, if this was her first appearance with this cover, I would guess her first appearance would actually be worth more than it is, but that's just my thoughts on it. All right, next we had one Star Wars related book with the wrap up of the Acolyte series. Despite it not getting great reviews, we got a little cameo of Darth Plagueis, and that's what caused this book to hit the list. Star Wars, The Return of Tag and Bink. Or Tag and Bink #2, or there's a couple different things, but this is #2 of that second Tag and Bink series. First cameo of Darth Plagueis from 2006. Raw copies back then were $40 to $50. 9.8 hit 300. Now it's a $5 to $20 book. No recent 9.8 sales. Yeah, that's down in a dumpster fire. No reason to have chased Darth Plagueis in that moment. Next, we have one Sony-related book hitting the list this week, and that was Amazing Spider-Man #600, first appearance of Captain Yuri Watanabe. And this was on the list because we got rumors that she would be a part of the Spider-Man Noir show. So 400% increase in sales because of that, but it was still going for $5. It's now a $5 to $15 book. Steady and I'll be back. No reason to have chased it back then, but yeah, it's just a cheap key. All right, with that, everything else on this list is MCU related, which is 7, 8 books. First of those is Deadpool, Merc with a Mouth, #7, first appearance of Lady Deadpool, and then we'd gotten another image that she was going to be in the movie, or more confirmation that she was in the movie. Raw copies back then were going for 100 plus, 9.8 hit 450. Now it's a $50 to $85 book raw. 9.8, 225 to 300. So that's down in a trap. Not a big surprise. We're 6 months plus, or about 6 months from the movie at this point. And there was, she was in the movie, but wasn't a really major character. No indication we're going to get more Lady Deadpool. And this book is returning slowly but surely to what it has always been. Next, we had Prelude to Deadpool Core, #3, first appearance of Dogpool. Back then, it was a $20 book, 9.8, 160. Now it's a Oh, I looked at the wrong line. 9.8200, excuse me. $20 book back then, 9.8200. Now it's a $5 to $15 book. One 9.8 sale for $150. Another down in a trap. Not a lot of sales here. Again, Dogpool was fun in the movie, but it's not had any staying power in terms of value for the book. All right. With that, everything else was related to images we'd gotten from Captain America. First up, we have Hulk number 4. This is the first fight between Hulk and Red Hulk. I'm picturing the main cover, which has half of Hulk's face. There is a cover that goes with it that is half of Red Hulk's face. When you put them side together, like splits the face in half. So they're side by side. So they were kind of a pair. Back then, it was basically $8 for the regular cover. 9.8 of either cover was $80 to $125. Now basically sets are going for $40 to $50 of the two covers of both Hulk and Red Hulk side by side. Green Hulk, the Green Hulk cover is going for like 10 to 20. Red Hulk's going for like 20 to 30. And together they're going for like 40 to 50. You kind of get where that's coming from. 9.8 of either of them is setting at about 150 to 180. So this is actually up and worth it. People are still chasing this particular cover, this first battle, even though all indications are Mark Ruffalo and Hulk are not in this Captain America movie, but people are still specking and buying these books. Next, we have Hulk number 16, first appearance of Red She-Hulk, and this is just more spec. We've had no indication that Betty is going to be back or that Red She-Hulk is going to make an appearance, but people were specking on it just in case. Raw copies back then, $30 average, 9.8, 160. Now it's a $15 to $40 book, 9.8, 125 to 170. So steady and I'll be back. You can get a little better deals, but still sitting pretty much in the same range for the first Red She-Hulk. Next, we had Incredible Hulk number 256, and we got confirmation that Sabra was going to be in or she was in the trailer, which is so confirmed she was in the movie. Raw copies were $30, 9.8, 200 back then. Now raw copies are $5 to $30, which is I'll be back. Would slide this into a down, I'll be back kind of thing. But 9.8, only one recent sale over the last 3 months. One 9.8 sale, and it went for $500, which seems way high in one sale. So we're going to kind of ignore that in terms of how the book is performing. If there was more sales, I might consider it, but one sale and the fact that the raw copies have taken a step back will stick with the down, and I'll be back on what's going on with this particular book. 3 more, all related to the new Captain America movie that's out next month. Captain America number 25, first Sam Wilson as Captain America. Hitting the list at $15 to $20 back then. Think about what this book was going for when we got Falcon and the Winter Soldier TV show. This book has come way, way down. Now it's a $10 to $25 book. 9.8, 50 to 100. Way, way down. This book has crashed. Not a lot of interest in here, even though Falcon is about to get his own Captain America movie. But compared to 6 months ago, still steady, and I'll be back on that side. But compared to like 2 years ago, this is a dumpster fire. So, all right. Next, we have Hulk number 1, second week in a row. Obviously, the first cover appearance of Red Hulk. And if there was ever something to convince you why people decided 181 was Wolverine's first appearance and not 180, it was only because of the cover and not because of the content of the book. This is the book that people want for Red Hulk, even though he's not in the book. He's just on the cover. $60 to $85 back then. 9.8 going for $400. Now it's a $60 to $90 book raw, but 9.8s have backed up considerably, 225 to 290. So we'll call it steady and I'll be back because you can definitely get some better deals, even though raw copies are basically sitting right in the same range. That's the steady, but the I'll be back is that the 9.8s are actually kind of a trap compared to what they were. And then our last book on the list this week is Hulk number 2 from 2008. And this is the first appearance of Red Hulk in the story. So he's actually in the book now. And this one was only $25 to $30 back then, $125 to $150 for a 9.8. Now it's a $10 to $30 book, $100 to $140 for 9.8. So another steady and I'll be back. Still pretty close to the range, but definitely a slight back, some better deals. But yeah, in the book, doesn't matter compared to the cover. So, and that is this week's list. I want to thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you next time. Later.